Blood sugar, glucose. You've seen these trackers. Everyone's talking about it. We got books coming out. We're listening on the podcast across the board. Now, let me tell you something. Ain't no one talking about the best supplements out there for your blood sugar, the best research supplements. And guess what? Today, I'm going to give you my top picks. Now let's get into it. Oh my goodness, blood sugar has been on fire. Everyone wants to know about blood sugar. Thank you, Glucose Goddess, for coming on the show twice. She really has been setting the tone and making blood sugar sexy. Now, this is not just something we are new to talking about. A lot of us have been talking about the implications of diabetes or prediabetes on our overall health. So before we even get to a pre-diabetic state, it's really important over the years to understand how you're reacting to certain foods. Now, remember, there's many different factors that arise in your own bio-individual expression of what makes your blood sugar rise and what makes your blood sugar stable, right? So a bowl of oatmeal for me might be fine. For you, it might spike your insulin. So really important is to understand how you feel. What are the signs that your blood sugar is elevated? What are the signs that it's normal and imbalanced? So when we eat a meal, our blood sugar goes up, right? So it's not only just meals, it's also when we work out, when we're stressed, when we're having poor sleep. Blood sugar is a really important indicator of what's going on in our body. Now, insulin is the hormone secreted by the beta cells in the pancreas that helps lower. You don't want to keep sugar in your blood vessels. That's a problem, right? If you put sugar water in a really delicate tube with delicate lining on the inside, just like the inside of our blood vessels, it's going to degrade it. It's going to eat it away over time. So insulin is what's bringing all of that sugar into the cells. And I'm sorry for all of you, those of you who work in this field or know this already, but just a quick lesson, right? Insulin is what gives the permission for the blood sugar, the sugar in the blood, to get into the cells, and the cells ultimately create energy and you live. It is the basis foundation of being a human, right? Now, when we are eating too much food that is processed, that keeps spiking our blood sugar, that keeps spiking insulin to be released, when we're eating a crappy diet overall, when we're super stressed, when we smoke, when we're not exercising, we have a really poor lifestyle and a really poor diet, what's happening is that our cells become resistant to that insulin, the insulin resistance. And so too begins the process of prediabetes into diabetes. Now, if you're into diabetes, it's a problem. It is a common chronic disease that reduces your lifespan, reduces your quality of life. So we want to make sure we're getting on top of this early. So here are some symptoms of having elevated blood sugar. You're having an increased amount of thirst, always having a dry mouth. You find yourself needing to pee frequently. You're constantly tired. You can start experiencing some blurred vision, even unintentional weight loss. And if you see recurrent infections like yeast infections, thrush in the mouth, bladder infections, it's really telling us that your blood sugar is elevated too long for prolonged amount of times and you're suffering. You may become insulin resistant over time. Now, what are some things that imbalance your blood sugar? I mentioned it's not just eating unhealthy foods, it's chronic stress. Even if you have an illness or a cold, that'll disrupt your blood sugar. Eating too much, even snacking between meals, not working out, being dehydrated also does so too. We also find that certain medications could even elevate your blood sugar. So you see there's multiple factors. It's not just diet, but diet is a major one. You got to get your diet right, and you have to know how you're being affected by your blood sugar. So when it comes to balancing your blood sugar, it's very important, as I mentioned, diet is the king. Knowing that you're eating high fiber food, high protein food, not having processed carbohydrates or processed foods in general, cooking with oils like coconut oil or olive oil or avocado oil, and staying away from those highly processed oils will play a role. Not adding sugar or drinking fruit juices, things like that. They're always going to affect your blood sugar, right? You want to make sure you're moving more, getting good sleep. If you're not sleeping right and you're not eating right, that's a surefire way to have elevated blood sugar. In fact, they found folks who sleep poorly or undersleep have elevated blood sugar, sort of like a pre-diabetic state the next day. You want to quit smoking, and you want to have a practice where you slow down, you calm down, you get back to your body. Very, very, very important. So with all of that said, people have been asking, what are the best supplements? Which one should I look for when I go on the swell score and look for the best supplements, right? Well, here are the best evidence-based supplements for reducing and balancing, supporting your blood sugar. Now, I will say, talk to your doctor before any of this. It's very important. Or if you're pregnant, very important, talk to your doctor. Thank you, BIRCH, as always, for sponsoring this show. Guess what, everyone? They have a Memorial Day sale, and it's running now. What they'll be offering is 25% off of a bed for a limited time. I want you to check the BIRCH site for more details. Now, you know on Heal Thyself, it was important for me to choose a BIRCH mattress because it's made of organic and natural materials. I can sleep easy knowing I'm not being exposed to any of that harmful off-gassing that's coming from the bed. It's Green Guard Gold certified. That means it's being tested for thousands of different volatile chemicals that we can be breathing in for the life of the bed. In addition for being a better mattress for me, BIRCH is committed for the planet. And I love that. I love that I can reduce my environmental impact, right, for the positive by having a mattress that is produced with raw materials. Now, BIRCH works with ethical partners that adhere to strict social, environmental, and economic standards. They have the stamp for that too. I've had my BIRCH mattress for about a year and a half, maybe even 2 years. I love it. I love how I sleep comfortably on it. I love how I'm not sweating. I love how I feel like I'm being held by a cloud. I love how I can sleep comfortably not even knowing. I love having the confidence to know that I'm not being exposed to any nasty chemicals. So with your BIRCH mattress, you get a 100-night sleep trial. And you have a 25-year warranty. The best part about this is BIRCH delivers your mattress right to the door, free within the United States. It comes rolled up in a box, super easy to unpack. I love my BIRCH mattress. I think you will too if you're looking for a new bed. Check out the BIRCH mattress. As I mentioned earlier, the Memorial Day sale is running now. You get 25% off for a limited time. And my link will give you 20% off thereafter. So visit birchliving.com to get your discount plus 2 free pillows. Memorial Day sale is running now for a limited time. Thank you, BIRCH, for sponsoring. Click the link in the description. That's birchliving.com/heal-thyself to get 25% off of your BIRCH mattress plus 2 free pillows during their Memorial Day sale now until June 5th. If you missed the limited time offer, you can get 20% off using my link. Offers are subject to change. Thank you, BIRCH, for providing the best beds out there. Let's talk about Mitopure and how it positively helps our mitochondria. Up until now, there have been very many supplements on the market that support mitophagy. That's the flushing out of the old damaged mitochondria. When I discovered this new compound called Urolithin A, I was intrigued. This was back in school. And I knew that it was derived from pomegranates, but it was hard, nearly impossible to eat or drink enough pomegranates to get the scientifically proven therapeutic dose. This is where Mitopure from Timeline Nutrition comes in. They've created 3 easy and delicious ways to get your daily dose of 500 milligrams of Urolithin A. And this is through their product, Mitopure. They've got a vanilla protein powder that combines muscle-building protein and cellular energy of Mitopure. They got a berry powder that mixes into smoothies or any drink. And this is the one I use, the soft gels for travel. You can do the starter pack and try all 3 forms. But Mitopure is the first product to use a precise dose of Urolithin A to upgrade mitochondrial function. The benefits of this increase your cellular energy, improve muscle strength and endurance. And just know by the age of 30, our muscles breaking down, our mitochondria is breaking down. We're quote unquote aging, but we don't have to. You can start supporting your cells and your mitochondria with something like this. Timeline is offering 10% off of your first order of Mitopure. Go to timelinenutrition.com/DRG and use the code DRG to get 10% off of your order. Again, that's timelinenutrition.com/DRG. I recommend trying the starter pack for all 3 forms. See which one you like. Now, there was a study in the Diabetes Spectrum Journal, and they pulled the evidence for different types of supplements or natural remedies. And it was a really good one. You can check it out. We'll link it on the show. But when it comes to the natural remedies, I want you to understand they're not as deeply studied as you're going to see a pharmaceutical be deeply studied because there's not really much money to be made from them, right? You can't really scale and market and make money from nature like that, right? So they're not going to put money into the funding. So I want you to understand that the evidence, although some have more, I wish there was tons more evidence so we can sit here surefire way and say, here is the best natural supplement for diabetes or better fasting blood glucose. But with what we have, the data out there, I'm going to tell you which ones are some of the best. Number 1, but in no particular order, alpha lipoic acid has been found to reduce fasting blood glucose and also improves insulin sensitivity in the body. It's also been studied and shown to improve something called diabetic neuropathy. This is when I said when sugar floating around the blood vessels can affect that blood vessel, it can also affect the nerves. And with neuropathy, you feel numbness and tingling in the hands and the feet, especially in the tips. So alpha lipoic acid has been shown at about 600 to 1800 milligrams daily to help with diabetic neuropathy for about 3 to 5 weeks. So that's one of my favorites. I actually used to use ALA for alpha lipoic acid for neuropathy when I worked in cancer. So if you're pre-diabetic or looking at your blood sugar and it's consistently high, not yet pre-diabetic, but worried about it, or if you're diabetic, this is something to talk to your doctor about. Berberine is one of my favorite ones. I've seen this work, actually. It was one of my go-tos in clinic. There was a meta-analysis, really high-level study that showed significant reduction in fasting and postprandial after eating blood glucose and HbA1c. That's over 3 months blood sugar versus just lifestyle interventions, right? So taking berberine has been shown to reduce all of those parameters instead of just, working out more or reducing smoking. So berberine, it's actually been head-to-head with metformin and has been shown to be as effective as metformin, which is a go-to drug for diabetes. Chromium is an OG. It's a mineral. It's an OG for blood sugar. It's cheap and accessible. We see that it increases your sensitivity to insulin. So if you're seeing or there's evidence of there's some insulin resistance going on, this might be one of your go-tos. It also lowers HbA1c, as I mentioned what that is before, and fasting blood glucose. Again, you want to talk to your doctor before taking this, especially something that can build up over time. You want to make sure. Some studies with chromium have shown no effect. That's the thing. A lot of them have shown high efficacy for people who had poor nutritional status and low chromium levels to begin with. So again, go back to your doctor. One of my favorite ones, easy, accessible, it's right there, Cassia Cinnamon. It's something you can add into your oatmeal in the mornings or add into your breakfast some way, somehow in the mornings. You can add it to your dinners as spice. You can do whatever you want with it, really. Cassia, you can make a drink with it. You can make a hot chocolate with it. Cassia Cinnamon is fantastic. It's cheap. It lowers blood glucose. It's generally regarded as safe. You want to make sure you talk to your doctor if you're on any blood thinners. Fenugreek, another pretty well-studied supplement for blood glucose, has been shown to reduce fasting blood sugar after eating postprandial, and HbA1c, a little less significant, but the first two more significant. You can get it in a powder, seed, capsule, and even different herbal modalities like a tincture. Another one of my favorite is ginseng. I like ginseng because it not only acts as an adaptogen in helping the adrenal with stress, and we know elevated cortisol can elevate the blood sugar, right? They're just kind of going hand in hand, the more stressed you are. So this is sort of like a 1-2 punch. Ginseng is going to be able to help you with your energy, help you nourishing the adrenals, help connect between the brain, the cortisol, and the adrenals, and has been shown to reduce blood glucose. So they found in one study that 3 grams for 12 weeks may potentially lower fasting blood glucose at a significant level, but it didn't have a change in HbA1c. But no study has been shown that if you take more than 3 grams, there's an added benefit. But ginseng is I would definitely talk to your doctor about that one. If you're stressed and your blood glucose is elevated, it might be a good 1-2 punch. Prickly pear, you ever hear of this one? You can actually purchase it in the supermarket, some supermarkets. It's got a high content of soluble fiber, and it's got something called pectin, which is really nourishing to the gut. And it actually may affect how the intestines uptake. They suck up glucose. And actually, if you take too much, can actually cause a hypoglycemic effect. It's pretty strong. A single dose of 300 grams of steamed prickly pear, cactus, it's a cactus. When you add it to a high carbohydrate meal, let's say you have a bunch of rice and some beans, has been shown to decrease postprandial blood glucose after eating. This is a food you can add into high carbohydrate meals and not just take as a supplement. Remember, we want to get creative. You don't just want to take a bunch of capsules. We maybe add it in as a food. So prickly pear cactus, another one. Another study about prickly pear, it was a Mexican study, showed that this cactus, which is actually common in Mexican cuisine, has been shown to reduce postprandial blood glucose by 20 to 48%. That's very significant. It's not known, again, as I mentioned, if it can be used to lower HbA1c levels, but there you go. Flaxseed. We know about this one. This is another interesting one. At a dose of 10 to 60 grams orally per day for 48 weeks, whole flaxseed has been shown to reduce insulin resistance and improve insulin sensitivity, reducing an average blood glucose reduction of 6 milligrams per deciliter with no change in HbA1c. So again, 6 milligrams per deciliter is pretty significant, especially if it's elevated and elevated and elevated. And maybe we'll see more studies over time if it affects HbA1c. So we know that it, on average, over the 3 months, is still keeping your blood sugar low and low, especially if you're consuming it regularly. To note, it seems that the greatest consumption was with whole flaxseed rather than flaxseed oil. Some honorable mentions that we don't yet see enough studies, but I've actually used these in my clinical practice years ago and have seen anecdotally people do much better with their blood sugar is bitter melon, which you may be aware of. Bitter melon, I believe it comes from India. Really powerful one. And the same with Gymnema, Gymnema. Both of those really powerful. So all of the ones that I mentioned have been shown in the research to reduce either fasting blood glucose, postprandial after eating, or HbA1c over the span of 3 months. And it's something to think about, right? We think about the diet stuff. I know you heard a lot about the diet stuff of balancing your blood sugar. I know you heard a lot about the exercise. Obviously, the drinking and the smoking is going to affect it. But now we wanted to talk about the supplement because they play a major role. Because when you're balancing and coming back to your health, right, you may need the help or the hand-holding of a really good supplement. So talk to your doctor, especially if you're pregnant, but talk to your doctor if you start any of these. Make sure you find the one that is right for you. But know that I've seen these in practice work really well. So there you have it. My favorite supplements to use if your blood sugar is elevated, if you have insulin resistance, if you're pre-diabetic, or even if you're diabetic. Remember, Swell Score holds the best curated supplements across the board. It's not just supplements, it's all these products. We have baby products, we have stuff for your home, we have cosmetics, beauty, everything. But when it comes to supplements, check there first. It's handpicked. We chose the best of the best. Actually, I was behind much of this. And let's get back to supporting companies that are doing right by us. So yeah, check out Swell Score. And I really hope that this Knowledge Bomb segment helped you and your blood sugar. All right, everyone. What a special guest we have today. Listen, it's not often I have the pleasure of interviewing someone in another country, but we're having a call all the way from Switzerland. And guess what? We got Dr. Signh of Mitopure. It's amazing stuff. This is, you heard me talk about Mitopure, and I've been talking about it for a long time. And it's one of the best products. It's one of the only 5 products I use every single day. We're going to go into that product a little bit later. But today we're going to talk about living longer, feeling better in your body, longevity, thriving. We're going to go a little bit into the gut microbiome. We're going to talk about the power of food medicine, all of the things for us to feel better long-term so we can be here for not only our children, our grandchildren, run around with them and just be thriving and radiant. Welcome to the show, Doc.
Well, thanks for having me on your show, Dr.G.
Yes, my man. Okay, listen, right from the get-go, we were talking about this on air and it's something that blew your mind away and it just really blew me away. The constituents that are in the everyday healthiest foods, can they, in research scientifically, be theoretically more powerful than even some pharmaceuticals?
Well, a lot of research over the last 2 decades is kind of pointing to that. And nutrition science has for long ignored sort of the right, cogwheels. How about they went about doing the proper research? And one of the reasons why a lot of people, everybody takes vitamin C, but nobody knows how much actually gets absorbed. Everybody's taking a gram, but where is it going and how is it working on your immune cells? The science hasn't been studied well enough. And I think that's where really bringing the deep sort of biotech approach to nutrition, that's what I have been doing for the last good part of 2 decades. And that unlocks nutrients that are powerful than a lot of modern medicines. And if you take them and harness them early on in your life, you can go on and live a very healthy, long lifespan and health span.
So this is actually what you all did with Urolithin A, right? It was the pomegranates containing that constituent and sort of like through biotech science, taking that out, concentrating it and finding some really powerful benefits, correct?
Yeah, that was when we started out, 15 years back. And the idea was to deconstruct some of the fruits and nuts and things like this in our diet that have always been associated with a health benefit. And so we started taking a look at things like pomegranate and berries and nuts. And it turned out for example, the pomegranate has close to 1,000 bioactive compounds. Now, one could argue that they all need to be together in sort of a whole fruit sort of matrix.
Right.
But when we started studying it, we found very quickly that there was a certain class of bioactives called Ellagitannins that were key. And it was not even the Ellagitannins, it was really the gut microbiome digestion of these Ellagitannins led to what we'll discuss about that was responsible for the health benefits.
Which, as we start now playing into it, you have these constituents that are in food. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
at a lower dose than we find when they're extracted and put
Mm-hmm.
into a really powerful product.
Mm-hmm.
But the role of the microbiome, do they accentuate the power of the constituents in the food through time, and are those molecules becoming more impactful in our body because of it?
Absolutely spot on. So that's exactly what the gut microbiome is. These are trillions of bacteria that have existed for centuries in a sort of a healthy relationship with the host, which is us humans. And what they do basically is they need their nourishment from our diet. So things like prebiotics, so fiber, is very key for it's like the food for these what we call probiotics or the gut microbiome, and we need to with the probiotics feed them. But ultimately, what they sort of harness the diet that we are giving them, and then the nutrients that they're releasing, which we now call as postbiotics, are of benefit to us as the human host, and that's what we've been studying.
So, you mentioned some fruits and nuts, and I feel like there's a
Mm-hmm.
reason we're talking about these. In your research, what have
Mm-hmm.
been some of the most powerful foods for our health, for longevity, for thriving, for inflammation, for all the things? Have you found there to be maybe top 3 or 5 foods that you go, oh yeah, no, this is something we should all be consuming?
Yeah, so 20 years back, I started studying pineapples. I had one of my mentors was sort of the ideology. He was a naturopath, and he was trying to study all the waste that people would throw when they eat the
Right.
pineapples, the stem. And he found this compound long back called bromelain that is present only in the stem of these pineapples that everybody throws away. Was a very potent enzyme called that is bromelain, and we started studying in asthma patients how it was good at breaking mucus, and it was almost as good as probably the top of the line pharmaceutical drug. And so I still tell people to eat a lot of pineapple and not throw away the waste. And from there, we went to sort of the pomegranates and berries. So things like raspberry and things like walnuts and pecans, these are very rich sources of the polyphenols. So these are complex nutrients in our diet, also in pomegranates, and that's why we started looking at it. So yeah, these would be my top 4, and the other one that I have studied a lot in my career is the apple. The peel of the apples has a lot of what we call flavonoids, and these flavonoids are some extremely potent compounds.
Mm.
So those would be probably pineapple, apple, pomegranate, berry, raspberry, and nuts would be probably the top 5.
It's
And of course, yeah, go
it's
ahead.
perfect. Coming from nature, we can integrate into our breakfast. We can have
Mm-hmm.
as a snack. We can just have it throughout the day. And we all, who doesn't love a good pineapple, unless you have an allergy or something. But so back to the pineapple. You mentioned the stem. A lot of us cut around the stem and we throw it away. How do we eat the stem?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. How do we get that bromelain from it? Do we juice it?
Yeah, I think that's how. So a lot of the stem gets thrown away, and a lot of clever people take the stem and they juice it out, and they get the bromelain, and that's what they sort of sell ultimately after purifying the bromelain out. So yeah, you could. It's hard, and so a lot of people just throw it away. It's bitter. A lot of good things are bitter.
Yeah.
So people don't, and it's very enzymatic. So if you ever eaten a very sort of juicy pineapple, the enzymes kind of you feel it. You feel the enzymatic activity. So if you eat the stem, you would even feel it more. So I think it's part of the holistic approach that you could take.
Mhm.
You need to eat your get your fiber from your diet. So eat a lot of fiber. Then you need to think about the enzymes, that things like from bromelain or pineapple that are coming.
Mhm.
And then you need to really kind of give advanced nutrition, sort of the cellular nutrition that we'll talk about today.
Yeah, 100%. Before we move to that, I want to go back to these berries because these are my favorite foods.
Hmm.
Uh, the fiber essentially helping the microbiome, but the flavonoids, the polyphenols, what are they doing in our body? Why are they always on people's top foods to eat all over the internet? What beneficial effect are we seeing from them?
So these polyphenols are very potent, what we call antioxidants. So a lot of us, for example, if your cells accumulate what is called as oxidative stress, so they accumulate what is called as free radicals, and they get damaged. And so a lot of these antioxidants, these polyphenols, counteract. So having a lot of them in your daily diet helps counteract cellular damage, for example.
Mm. And is that the same thing that we're seeing with the nuts that you mentioned, or are there other constituents that play a different role?
Yeah, I think there are probably hundreds of these compounds, classes of compounds. So you have, for example, from green tea, you have the galectin, the
Hmm.
catechins. From the nuts, you have the phenocalagens and the ellagitannins. And so all these class of compounds, nobody has really taken a deep look into it,
Right.
And for long, people have said, oh, a bowl of walnuts is good for your heart, or a bowl of berries is good for cardiovascular health and things like this, and that ultimately boils down to what's inside these matrix. But if you could actually figure out or a couple of the really potent bioactive compounds through research, I think the magnitude of impact on human health will be extremely impressive.
100%. So now let's talk about these pomegranates. Okay. So I've loved pomegranates
Hmm.
as a kid, even though it took me forever to finally eat it. I always grown patient with them.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
when you hundreds of different compounds, maybe even thousands,
Hmm.
where do you isolate or even find out that urolithin is such an important part of pomegranates? And what is it doing in the form of the pomegranates when we eat it, even though if it's a low dose?
Yeah. So I'll try to summarize our 15 years of research in that question.
Perfect.
We said we'll deconstruct the pomegranate, and basically what we did at the start was we went around different countries: Spain, Turkey, India, even California, wherever pomegranate grows around in tropical climate. So and we juiced them, and we cut them open, and we kind of made extracts just to see. And the levels are different depending on if you're eating sort of Californian pomegranate versus Spanish pomegranate. The levels of these polyphenols are different, and so we figured out that we could actually make these 100% sort of extracts. But these extracts, whenever we would test them, in different matrix, they would start to behave differently in different experiments. And it actually led us to think, well, maybe it's the gut microbiome that
Mhm.
is actually harnessing from these polyphenols, these phenocalagens, the molecule called urolithin A. And we started studying different populations. So we went into the French, the Canadians, even the American population. And we started giving people pomegranate juice, for example, just to see how many people would naturally make this molecule urolithin A. And there was not a lot. 30 to 40% people in French actually made it. In the US and Canada, you can imagine the diet is not very conducive
Yeah.
to a lot of berries and nuts. It was even lower, like 10, 12%. And then we started doing experiments, and lo and behold, this particular molecule that was generated by the gut microbiome, urolithin A, was just extending lifespan of different species. It was just making them 50, 60% more enduring. And so we started taking a deeper look then
Mm.
on urolithin A.
Mhm. So was it not coming from the microbiome then, and it was already inherent in the pomegranate at a high level?
No, so urolithin A is not found in pomegranate.
Mm.
It's the precursors are found in the
Mhm.
pomegranate. These are the ellagitannins and the phenocalagens. The gut microbiome basically takes these very complex compounds and cleaves certain
Mhm.
compounds out of it. So the simplified molecule that then goes after the digestion by the gut microbiome, that's the urolithin A
Mhm.
molecule. So it's produced by a body, but you won't get it directly from exposure to sort of well, if you're eating the right fruits and nuts and you have the right gut microbiome, you will in certain quantities.
Isn't it interesting how brilliant nature is? Because if you think about the pomegranate, it's got some fiber, it's got some polyphenols, and that's feeding the microbiome. So it's actually
Yeah,
transforming what's already in there by giving you better, stronger
yeah,
microbiome. It's like, Whoa, is that like the craziest design of it? It's is wild. And I know you've seen that and I know you appreciate that, but it's just so cool
Mhm,
to hear
mhm,
as it's coming out and that
mhm.
thought coming. So now we have Urolithin A, right? And I remember hearing about this in school. This is even before the product that I take, but and we'll go into that. How powerful is it? Why was that isolated as like, whoa, this has some really beneficial pieces for longevity or muscle strength or muscle endurance. And this is how I talk to everyone about it. It's like if you're working out, this is something you need right now. And then we'll go into the mitochondria.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, our focus from the last 15 years has been longevity research, right? So, in longevity space, the first time or first models you actually look for an effect is these tiny worm-like creatures called C. elegans. And these are basically, they live about 20 days. And so you can actually very quickly study the effect of certain compounds. So we would take these polyphenols, these ellagitannins that are found in the pomegranates, berries, and nuts, and we would put them in the food of these worms, and we wouldn't see much of an effect on lifespan extension or things like even mobility. But when we took this gut transformed molecule, urolithin A, the postbiotic I was telling you about, and we would put that in the diet of the worms, we would see about a 45% life extension. And that was the thought that, now if you actually look at the whole longevity space, there are a number of compounds like resveratrol or NAD modulators or even caloric restriction, for example. We work very closely with a really elite top scientists around the world, and the professor who was doing these experiments came running to our lab. He didn't know which compound we had given him, and he said, "What is this particular molecule? Because it's as almost as good as caloric restriction, at least on worms." And so we went from there to older animal experiments where we actually dissected out in older animals how giving this for 6 weeks was boosting their endurance and muscle strength, strength by 10%, endurance by close to 40, 50%. And from there, we've done a number of clinical studies to prove that that mechanism and how it behaves is similar in humans as
Mm.
well.
So this postbiotic that's coming from pomegranates
Hmm.
helped broken down and created in the microbiome has been shown in these animal studies early on to
Hmm.
increase lifespan. You're seeing
Yeah.
more of that. Then it's moving to the physical, the active, the muscle
Hmm.
endurance, the muscle strength. How is this
Hmm.
constituent helping our muscles? What is it doing in our muscles?
Very good question. So, what urolithin A does is, so we all have these sort of repair mechanisms in our cell, and the cells have a lot of organelles, typically mitochondria. And the more active the cell is, the more mitochondria it has, right? So, for example, a muscle cell has thousands of mitochondria because it requires a lot of energy. We require energy to move. We require energy to do sports. And so we started when we saw these effects on muscle strength and endurance. We started taking a closer look at mitochondria inside the skeletal muscle, for example. And what we found was that these mitochondria were turbocharged after taking urolithin A. And what I mean by that is they looked happy and they looked in very good sort of a youthful state. Now, what happens to mitochondria over its lifespan is so a healthy mitochondria, as it gets exposed to bad diet or UV light or stress, whatever, there's so many stressors, it accumulates damage and it starts to look crummy. And over time, aging is another stressor. Being overweight is another stressor. The body's repair mechanisms become faulty. So think of your garbage bin in your house. If you're not cleaning it out, your house will not smell well, right? So that's exactly what's happening in the cells. The process of cleaning out the waste slows down, and so this molecule actually revs up a process we call mitophagy, which is this cellular garbage disposal and repair machinery inside the mitochondria, and that basically leads to superior mitochondrial health and youthful mitochondria.
Mm. So the more that this garbage sewage dump system, the cities dump trucks aren't running
Hmm.
around cleaning, the more that the
Hmm.
mitochondria is affected and all of that garbage is building up. And that's affecting overall our energy, which is affecting our muscle strength, correct?
Absolutely. The analogy I give is like a Pac-Man game. If everybody remembers how there's a lot of dots, and
Mm.
if your Pac-Man is going very slow and not cleaning all the dots, then you've got a problem. And that's exactly the kind of thing that happens in our mitochondria and in our cells. The garbage disposal machinery just slows down. The trucks don't show up, and that leads to a lot of waste accumulation. And so there's basically no more a time where you have healthy mitochondria, and that happens with aging. So in a sedentary 75-year-old, that's exactly what's happening. Your mitochondria you have more bad mitochondria than good mitochondria. But if you clean the waste out, then the new ones have a chance to give you more energy.
And how does mitochondria overall play its role in longevity of us just living longer? Is there a direct connection there?
Absolutely. So there have been a lot of studies done, and the biggest one was done actually by the National Institute of Aging in the US, tens of thousands of older adults who had basically, they looked at folks, and we've done those studies ourselves. We've actually taken a look at 70 to 75-year-olds who have been training for half marathons almost all their life, and we've compared them to 70, 75-year-olds who live a very sedentary lifestyle almost all their life, are not moving very well when they're 70. And we've basically gone in and asked the question, how do their mitochondria look? And we've published this in really the top journals. What you see, everything points down to mitochondrial health in the muscle, and that's what we call energetic. So if your muscle doesn't have good energy, you won't function well, you won't move well, and you won't be able to exercise well. And that's exactly the role mitochondria have.
But we call it, I'm just aging, I'm getting old. And we sort of just subscribe to not our mitochondria being at its poor declining shape. We just say, I'm getting old. But we're learning that we actually have the power to change that, which is really, really beautiful. You've done human trials now on Urolithin A, and we saw some not only just more endurance, but better strength in muscles, correct?
Yeah, so we've done randomized placebo-controlled trials, a number of them. First one we did was published in Nature Metabolism, which is probably one of the top metabolism journals out there. And there we gave a short duration of 4 weeks. So in 4 weeks, the way you look at mitochondrial health is primarily two ways. You either take a little blood draw and you look at mitochondrial biomarkers, or you take chunks of muscle tissue with a process called biopsy, muscle biopsy. And when we looked at the muscle biopsies, the mitochondria started looking well in these 70, 75-year-old, I was mentioning, the sedentary folks. And then we did longer trials in the older adults for 4 months, where we start to see a really significant boost in resistance to fatigue. So people have more energy to keep doing a certain task longer, which is what you want when you're 75, 80 years old. And then we went a bit younger in the 40 and 50-year-olds because we think that we can change the paradigm, that you can actively impact your health early on rather than wait for the extreme 70, 80 when your function is declining. And even there in 40, 50-year-olds, we saw about a 10% improvement in strength. Wow. Now we are going after elite athletes even who are very young, 20, 30s, because even with overtraining, your mitochondria start to get stressed. And so we've done a number of trials, and the same data.
Interesting. So you had mentioned in the natural process of our mitochondria sort of just like slowing down. Does that happen at a certain age?
Yeah, so there's a lot of research. Muscle function typically starts declining about 10% every decade, starting from our third decade of life. And if you were to look at mitochondrial function, it would probably mimic that decline. So that starts happening. Now, in the field, there are something we call as the hallmarks of aging. So in our third, fourth decade after, we all get more inflamed. That's something that happens. Our gut microbiome changes. We get our mitochondria, as we have been talking about, don't look too good. And then we don't absorb nutrients very well. And so one of the things that have become very clear over time is that actually one of the pathways that is amenable to interventions is the mitochondrial pathway, one of the key hallmarks of aging. And so, we think that by improving mitochondrial health, you can really improve health span, not just of muscle, but brain, immune, all kinds of cells that have mitochondria.
Right. The muscle, you mentioned the brain, are those tissues that are more dense with mitochondria, more active.
Yeah,
Right. So then it would stand to believe the more that we even, I'm sure that as the studies come out, you do some more brain studies, it's going to be similar because it's affecting mitochondria overall, correct?
you absolutely got it 200% correct. So when we are a small research focused company, and research is two words I always say: re and search. You always need to keep building and searching and validating your results. And so while we have published the data on muscle, a lot of really top professors around the world, in Harvard and National Institute of Aging, have started looking at the brain, and they basically, in the National Institute of Aging, they looked at thousands of compounds that could have an impact on brain aging, and the top one turned out to be Urolithin A.
Mm.
And they even found in Alzheimer's disease patients that mitophagy was really turned off. So, yeah, eventually, I think we are headed in the direction of doing more research, clinical research now on brain health and other, even immune health.
Fantastic stuff. Now, when I mentioned Mitopure, and this is the product that I only take really, I try to keep it under 4 or 5 supplements a day, like different types of. I'll always take magnesium. I love magnesium. That works for me. I go to sleep. I go to bathroom. I am good with magnesium. But yeah, no, Mitopure is always there, and I'm very active. I box. I'll do yoga. I run around town doing all this work and everything. You know how it is. The brain is needing all of this, and there's definitely a different. You feel it. You feel it. And the way I say it is not like a coffee, like up and down. You feel it. It's just sustained. I can tell when I'm on it. So can I just eat 50, not 50, but a bunch of pomegranates and get the same dose? Or is there a concentrated dose? Is there a level? Is there a breaking point, a threshold that you go, this is the dose that we see is the best?
Yeah, so the trick with pomegranates is, as I mentioned, you need to eat a lot. So probably you'll need to drink from our research we see is you need to drink 6 glasses of pomegranate juice, each glass being 4 pomegranates, equivalent of juicing. So you'll need to have like 24
A
pomegranates
lot of
to
sugar.
get to. It's a lot of sugar, and then it's an inefficient process in nature because a lot of us have lost the beautiful gut microbiome that probably we had. And I've tested myself. We've actually even developed a very simple blood prick test from your few drops of blood. We can tell if your body is actually naturally making it, and then you can even decide to titrate the dose if you want. My body doesn't make it, so I can actually drink 6 glasses of juice. My body will make 0
Wow.
urolithin A.
Wow.
So that it boils down probably to my early years growing up in India, where I first trained as a doctor. A lot of antibiotic use, so probably that just knocked my gut microbiome forever.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, same. So for folks, I have a feeling I'm the same with you because I took a lot of antibiotics as a kid. There's 1,500, 1,000. Is this what we look for? I know because the Mitopure capsules have a certain dose.
yeah,
Is there a reason for that?
yeah. Yeah, so the dosing we have looked, and the dosing we have the best data is the 500 and the 1,000. So at 500 is good to start seeing effects on muscle strength and improving mitochondrial health. The gram, I always up to a gram because I know my body doesn't make it, and so I need to start with years of, let's say, poor mitochondria probably because my body never made this molecule, and what we do see with the gram is additional impact on things like improved VO2. For example, VO2 max is this readout people have do on endurance. We see inflammation go down, so we measure a lot of markers in the clinic called something like C-reactive protein, which is a very potent marker of how inflamed your body is, and we see that going down. So, yeah, these are the two doses that I recommend. If you go beyond, I think you probably hit a ceiling after a gram
Mm.
and plateau the effect. So, yeah.
And I've recommended it already. I put it a lot on my stories because I talk about from the aspect of the not only just longevity and feeling good in your body, but the athleticism part. And I say, especially around if you're 30, even before, but right around 30, you need to understand what's happening with your muscles and you need to understand what's happening with your mitochondria. So we have to start supporting ourselves without fail. Now, is there a way to take this urolithin A through Mitopure? Do we take it before the workout, after the workout, during the middle of the workout? Have you found that there's a right way to do it, or it's just getting it in your body?
All our trials are with the subjects and participants taking it first thing in the morning on a fasted state. And the reason has been, well, we have studied it with food or without food, and the absorption is same. But it's just sort of additive, right? Overnight fasting is already triggering autophagy, which is a global clearing of the waste inside your cell. And then with urolithin A Mitopure, you go in and you trigger mitophagy in sort of in sync. And so that's probably where we see the most potent data. That's what I do. But I think we've seen that folks split the dose. Those who take a gram take 500 in the morning, 500 in the late afternoon, evening. So you're probably getting 2 peaks in the blood, which is probably even better. In terms of recovery, the way I see it, this postbiotic is sort of the foundation of everything that you stack on, right? So you mentioned magnesium. So this is taking care of your cellular health. Now, when your cellular health is good, then you're probably more responsive to even other nutrients that you're supplementing with. So our recent study in athletes, and from what we are hearing, much like you were saying, it works great during and after workout. So a lot of people tell us that they feel less soreness and they recover much faster after an intensive bout of exercise.
Yeah, very, very important. It's so funny because we talk about, okay, how do we take care of ourselves as we get older? And you guys had put out something to market that is really, really, really powerful, easy to take. You don't need to take 6, 8 of these a day. There's some products that are like that. It's really easy. So you talked about also reducing inflammatory markers, CRP, which is, I mean, we talk about inflammation being at the fountainhead of so many diseases. So we're going from the cellular health, making sure it's robust and healthy, and then turning down that dial of inflammation in the body. So we would expect over time to see some really good healing happening. And I know, you haven't studied the disease states, but just theoretically, as we see it's creating in the body, it's really powerful to think that the healing can come just from cellular and mitochondrial health.
Yeah, and that's been the sort of eureka moment for us. We didn't put out the product until 15 years. We were convinced that this molecule had what it took to change people's health. And that's sort of the satisfaction as a trained clinician, and now as a physician scientist. I get, as a doctor, I used to see 10 patients a day. Now with my work, I can impact hundreds and thousands of folks around. And the eureka moment is basically what you said, that mitochondrial health is such a key pillar of human health span. And you need to be proactive, and you need to start thinking about it in your 30s and 40s.
Right now is the time. And the viewers and listeners, we're around that age group, even younger. Now is the time to start thinking about it. You don't want to wait till you're older. So now we have something right here in the market that is reducing inflammation, that is creating more robust, healthy cells, cleaning out all the debris and the garbage of the mitochondria, making sure it's running and helping, giving us energy, athleticism. Are we talking about like right here, like the fountainhead? Did we discover the fountainhead over here? This is exciting stuff. I feel really good just having this show and talking about it, bringing it to the audience.
Well, this is, again, I don't want to say that this is a magic pill, right? It takes time. It does need time to clean out years of sort of, for example, if you're, I'm a weekend warrior, so I get to exercise only on the weekend. And when I do, I take, now as I age, I feel that recovery is taking longer. And on Mitopure, I actually feel now that I can recover faster. So it's something that you diet and exercise is something, 2 pillars that you always need. Now, the third pillar is really cellular health, and that's one of the tools you have now is Mitopure to tackle it.
I love it, Doc. Thank you so much. Where can we find out more information about all of this? If people want to even see the research, where do we go?
Yeah, sure. People can go to, if they want to look at our products, and we have different product formats, both that fit in with your lifestyle and the food and sort of journey, and and then we have the dietary supplements that you can take very calibrated doses. So people can go on timelinenutrition.com and see a lot of these products. And if they want to learn more about the science, they can go to mitopure.com. That's where all our blogs and our research papers are discussed.
All you research heads out there, I know that you want to check it out. That's where you're going to go, learn more about it. And I talk about it on the show. We got the code for it. So, Doc, I don't know what time it is out by you, but it looks like it's nighttime. So we got to get you some good sleep. So, you're a weekend warrior here. We got to get you good rest. So thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate you, your knowledge, your research, what you're putting out in the world, the intentionality behind it. I see it. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
It was an absolute pleasure, Dr. G. Thanks for having me.
All right, brother.